Greetings everyone. In this video we will be talking about Chapter 3 International Maritime Trade and Logistics. And here is our table of contents. Now let's get started with the introduction. So in the early days until the beginning of the year 2000s, the concept of logistics management covered the physical process of planning, organizing, and controlling the flow of materials and services from the supplier's point to the customer's point. And the concept of supply chain management covers the customer satisfaction, customer relation, financial flow, and information flow by making logistics function a more integrated and complex group of activities. As a result, it is important to consider how supply chain management, logistics, and the support for local and international trade can interact. In fact, because almost 85% of the worldwide trade is carried out by marine transportation, such as ocean transport, seaway, and inland waterway, this sector has seen as being important to the global trade. So this chapter focuses on these objectives and the methodology to use to be able to achieve these objectives will be conceptual description of the interrelation of international and maritime trade within global logistics services, using world economic data and a review of developments in the global economy, and also the description of international maritime transport by cargo type and liner shipping connectivity data. So overall, the purpose is to explain the background of global competition in maritime trade routes and cargo types between nations in maritime network. So let's move on to logistics and supply chain management, and why is it important. So the growing significance and importance of logistics and supply chain management in businesses is due to what customer wants and needs, globalization, specialization, and the advancement in information communication and technology at the beginning of the year 2000. Therefore, in addition to these concepts, supply chain management also covers functions and stages, concept of information flow, financial flow, and customer relation. Logistics and supply chain management are integrated among various business functions and progress with the aim to minimizing costs, maximizing benefit, and generating customer satisfaction. So each link within the logistics and supply chains is heavily linked to another in the chain, and they facilitate communication, information technology, humanity, and social sciences. So overall, logistics and supply chain management rapidly transform and develop businesses in parallel with the developments in international trade. So moving on to logistics and transport. This part reviews the role of transport industry in international trade and global logistics service. So global production, transport, distribution, and logistics all require the settings of appropriate freight management strategies. So to be able to have goods available to the market, the operation of logistics, which include purchasing, order processing, inventory management, and transportation, are all necessary. It is an important part in the global economy because it can support many different commodity chains. And transport and logistics activity have always been important since the company started to know how to use them. So transport is now it's more than car, trains, ferries, vessel, planes and other vehicles. The process is the important one, which each raw materials needs to be moved until it becomes a semi-finished product, and all physical product needs to be moved to the point where they're consumed. Therefore, we can say that transport is the key to supply chain management and logistics operation. It is also essential to international trade, which depends on the transfer of commodities from one location to another. So recently, growing demands for transport and trade has led to globalization and the development of global economy, which has directly affected transport and trade facilitation. But in the late year 2000 and 2008 in particular, that was the milestone for global economy. And then there was the after effect of the global financial crisis on the transport and maritime industry, which was very severe at the time. And all actors that was involved in the maritime industry, like shipping, ports, and the intermodal transport, have been forced to reshape their business development models to prepare for the future. However, these difficulties has also created more opportunities to develop corrective actions and review their practices. The major actors in the transportation and maritime industry believe that the time has come to examine more methods, streamlines, theories, and integrated shipping ports into multimodal transportation system. So that is the end of my part. Cheng Hui will continue with global trade and the maritime industry.
Alright, greetings, sir, and everyone. My name is Ching Hui, and continuing from Melinda, I will be talking about the global trade and the maritime industry. So mainly, these sections focus on the global financial crisis and how it affects the maritime trade activity and the economic as a whole. It started a little bit background on the global financial crisis. It started in 2007 and around 2009, and mainly it's caused by the bad loanings of the banking system in the US that leading to the downturn of the US housing market and later on spread to other country and the rest of the world. We all know that these financial crises were really severe, that it affects the economic of the world as a whole, and particularly on global trade of our country, that leading to all the activity in trade were down to the below crisis level. And further detail, I'll be elaborating on the next slide for everyone. So mainly the effect from the crisis were centered on four main segments. Mainly, of course, the economic, the global GDP will decline, leading to a global recessions. A lot of unemployment, inflation rate will also raise highly in those period. And trade, of course, the import export will mainly depend on the economic, showing the decline in GDP represent a decline in trade as a whole that dropped by 7 times than the global GDP. And thirdly, it's the maritime activity. The international seaborne trade and maritime transportations service also strength because the maritime activity represent around 85% of the trade. And further, lastly, the container industry that heavily relied on the maritime activity, that the trade volume also declined. Container trade volume also declined, that illustrate in the decline between the major routing from the west to the east during this financial crisis period. So if you look at the data showing here, we can see that the global GDP strength in 2007 it were for 4.0, but during the period it shrank to 1.5, and severely in 2009 it shrank to minus 2.2 at the end of the crisis, and the developed country, it contracted to minus 3.8, while developing country were to around 2.9% from this crisis. And until 2012, that everything's turned back to normal and stabilized to around 2.2 percent in the after the effects of the crisis. This is illustrating just the data from all the country affecting by the crisis at the time. And turning to the effect on trade, importantly, it fell significantly to minus 13% in 2009, and it started to recover back in 2010, which export increased to 13.8, and import also increased to 13.9% as well. And against to the important things which is also the focus of our lesson is on the maritime activity that represents around 85% of the total transport volume. And importantly, because a lot of goods are transferred mostly through maritime trade, especially the good that transfer in bulks, and we can see slightly oil, or crude oil that take over the maritime activity. Mainly, it's fell significantly by the crisis from 2.73 billion to 2.64 billion tons, which is around 3% during the period of global crisis. And others, the international seaborne trade were also fell by 4.5%. We can see in 2007 it was 7.9, and then it increased to 8.22, and then later on it fell back to 7.8. That's happened during the financial crisis area. So these are all the effects causing from the global financial crisis on the important segment, and especially the maritime activity, as I mentioned. And further, I'll pass the mic to my next member, which is Cameron. Thank you.
Thank you for the mic. And to continue from Cheng Hoi's part, the world economic recession and global financial crisis that causes the demand for consumer goods to shrink has also caused the container industry to dramatically decline in 2009, in which dropped by 9%, which is considered to be around 124 million 20-foot equivalent unit, or around 1.19 million tons of consumer goods. The table here illustrates the cargo on the east-west container trade routes from 2018 to 2012, where a majority of trade routes around the world declined, except for the one between North America to Asia and the one from North America to Europe. When things start together between 2010 to 2012, many countries seems to have great or better trading system, trading traffic, except for the one from North America to Asia and the one from Europe to North America. To be more specific, this figure gives the idea of how the container port traffic by region between 2008 to 2012, in total of number of million TEU. As you can see in this figure, the international maritime starts to drop dramatically in 2009, and it starts to recover from the global economic turndown in 2010. As you can see here, in every country, it drops here at the 2009, and it starts to go back up in 2010. And by mid 2010, gradual growth had emerged and increased in total trade volume, especially to and from China. Moving on to the liner shipping. Liner shipping is a shipping service that operates with regular schedule, fixed routes, and fixed timetable, and they visit multiple ports along the way. And the advantage of liner shipping is that this type of shipping service is characterized by its reliability, as it offers the customer deviations of regular service, low-cost service, and predictable transit time. And with that, the AD had mentioned that due to its characteristics, the liner shipping highly determines a country competitiveness and its connectivity to the global market. The design or the arrangement of the liner shipping network is not only important for the shipping line, but also for the overall structure, which is why there are many important questions on what determine or what influence the configuration of the system or the network of the current liner shipping. And many studies have shown that the location of port on the network of liner shipping can has a tremendous effect on the cost of transportation. Therefore, it's why the location of port has become a strategic for governments to decide on where to locate their port in order to ensure the trade competitiveness. And aside from the location, the containerized transport also determines the development of the liner shipping network. For example, if a port or region is located where there is a high demand for containerized transport, the shipping companies would seek to include those ports in their routes to meet the demand of the shippers, therefore affecting the liner shipping network. And the demand for containerized transport affects the development of the liner networks. In this table, it shows the top 20 countries corresponding their liner shipping connectivity index scoring from 2004 to 2013, which measures how well countries are connected to the global shipping network based on 5 components of the maritime transport sector, including number of ships, the container carrying capacity of ship, maximum vessel size, the number of services, and number of companies that deploy container to a country's port. The index is a set of 100. In 2004, the countries that are active and involved in trade has the most to highest liner shipping connectivity value. And as you can see in the table, the top 3 countries that has the most export-oriented economies, including China, ranking number 1, following with Hong Kong, number 2, and lastly, Singapore taking the 3rd place. And as I've already mentioned, the countries that has the highest connectivity with liner shipping give them higher access to the world market, especially regarding importing and exporting goods. And according to the UNTCAD, companies that operates container shipping are less likely to provide services to and from the seaport that are considered to be least developed countries, or we call it the LCDS. And according to that is due to their low level of national trade volumes, making their ports least attractive to the transit of cargo, therefore decreasing their access to the global market. And so this is the conclusion of the chapter, which they provide an overview of the maritime logistics services, the global trade, international seaborne trade within the maritime transport industry. And overall, through all the charts that we have analyzed, we can see that the world is recovering from many of its crises since the World War II. And we can also see that the global economy has a direct relationship with the international transport or maritime transportation, to be specific, since it accounts for around 85% of the global trade. And for example, like how trade between all regions drops dramatically during the world recession in 2009, as I mentioned, which reminds me of the term "trade makes everyone better off" by Adam Smith in the book "The Wealth of Nations." Therefore, because we are able to trade, the world economics gets better. That is it for chapter 3. These are the references, and I hope see you next time. Thank you.